sherry, the cellar, the story of Pol Roger, the connection that Pol Roger we have with the British, the United Kingdom. On the other hand, we are established in Épernay since 1849. So more than 165 years of champagne making in Épernay, so in the historical art of Champagne. So the Verbunt Reserve is our flagship. It represents roughly 80% of our sales. So you have to have in mind that when in the world we open 5 bottles of Pol Roger, 4 are this cuvée. And this cuvée is it represents the style of Pol Roger, so style based on the finesse, based on the elegancy, with very delicate bubble. That's the style of Pol Roger, and this style was fixed at the end of the 19th century, based on the way how the British drink their champagne at this time. So champagne that you could drink from very early in the morning till very late at night. So champagne, easy to drink, elegant, with delicate bubble. So now there is no the influence of the British now is it's not so finally so strong on the style. It's our style, it's Pol Roger, but at the very beginning it has an influence on the style. Chardonnay, 1/3 Pinot Meunier. As I said, Pinot Meunier, a local grapes that you find in Champagne. Then these grapes are coming from about 30 to 32 different villages, different terroirs, Grand Cru and Premier Cru, in the historical vineyard. So Montagne de Reims, Côte des Blancs, Vallée de la Marne. Then it's a blend of 4 different years. So 2009, dominantly 2009, roughly 75%. And then the rest, the 25 other % are coming from the Vin de Réserve. So 08, 07, 06. So 4 different vintage, 2009, 2008, 2007, 2006. The minimum legal for a non-vintage is 15 months. So it means that we roughly triple the time in the cellar compared to what we have to do by the law. That's also something specific at Pol Roger, the long aging. Why? The idea with the long aging is when you do it's due to our cellar. So when we have a picture of our cellar, I will show it to you. But our cellar is one of the deepest in Champagne, probably the deepest, 35 meters underneath, and which means that it's also the coolest. So the bubbling process is quite slow. The second fermentation in the bottle, so the bubbling process is quite slow, and that's allowed us to have very, very fine and delicate bubble. That's one thing. Another thing is the long aging develop an exchange in between the dead yeast and the wine, and this exchange gave complexity to the wine. At Pol Roger, we never use oak in the process. So all the complexity of our champagne is coming from, of course, the grapes, the blend, etc., but also the long aging. So with this long aging, you have first this small delicate bubble, and these bubbles are turning finer and finer during the aging. A normal year, because we depend on the nature, the sun, the terroir, etc. But roughly end of September, we have our harvest. So we harvest the grapes by hand in small plastic bags. We crush the grapes very quickly in the vineyard to avoid oxidation, to avoid bad color. then we drive the must at Pol Roger with reefer truck to the winery. So that's the winery, very clean, very modern, very bright. So we drive the must to the winery, where we do first sedimentation to filter gently, softly the must. We do then vinification at low temperature, vinification under control for the temperature. Roughly, this vinification stop in November, December. The family and the board of direction decide the blend of the year. Then we do the blending reel in the winery. Then we do a second sedimentation at cold temperature. So if you have the chance to come and visit us from March to May, end of May, you will see a part of the winery full of frost, because we push the temperature close to zero in this part of the winery to let the wine during 5 to 6 days at the temperature close to zero to have a sedimentation. So the big sediments that you have in the wine are falling down. Then we have, at the end of the process, we have this of sediment in the bottom of the tank. We pump the wine, we bottle the wine. At the moment when we bottle the wine, we add yeast and sugar in the bottle. We push the wine in the cellar on a vertical way, and on an horizontal way, sorry. And we let the wine, it depends. For this wine, it's in between 45 to 54 months. Then we riddle the wine. Then we disgorge the wine. Then we keep the wine during 3 to 6 months in a special cellar. Then the wine is ready for the market. Then we wait an order for Verbunt, coming from you. But that's also explain why a champagne could be a little bit more expensive compared to a normal wine, because the process of champagne is a long process, a very long process. And we were talking about aging, long aging. Today, end of 2014, in our cellar, we had 9 million bottles in stock. So that's the one that was digged by hand, and it's very small, very tiny. The other one is bigger, digged by the machine. So we have quite a large cellar. We have the deepest, but we also have a very large cellar compared to our size. So the Brut Reserve, so this one, is clearly the art of champagne. The second one that we have in our glass is quite special. It's a Blanc de Blanc. So Blanc de Blanc means a white juice coming from white grapes. So at Pol Roger, it's 100% Chardonnay. That's the one we are trying. So Blanc de Blanc vintage 2004. So this Blanc de Blanc is a vintage. Total production of champagne is roughly 300 million bottles. Pol Roger, we produce 1.6 million bottles. So we are considered as the smallest among the greatest. So the small house in terms of size among the big name, the Grand Marque. Rosé, one method is the skin contact. So you let the juice in contact with the skin, and then because the color is in the skin with the anthocyane. So you let the juice in contact with the skin 2 hours. You have very pale rosé. If you let them 8 hours, you have something a little bit deeper in color. And there is another method that we use at Pol Roger, and we use in champagne, is the blending. So we blend a red wine and a white wine together. But what is important is at Pol Roger we use 15% of red wine. And another thing which is quite special at Pol Roger is that we only produce vintage rosé. There is no non-vintage rosé at Pol Roger. It's quite hard to say, but that's That's what we are doing. So only vintage. Most of our colleagues or competitors are doing 3%, 5%, 8%, but with 15% we have quite a few to have a high proportion of red wine. Because the idea at Pol Roger, when we launched this cuvée, so in 1956, so a long time ago, the idea was to have was to express the elegancy, the fruitiness of the red Pinot Noir that we could produce in Champagne. So that explains why we have a high proportion of red wine. And you can feel it in the Champagne that you are trying. Then it's only a vintage, which means that we produce rosé only the very good year for the white wine. The winery, the entire winery, so the production site, is on the number 32 and 34 of the Avenue Champagne. So one of the most prestigious avenues in the wine business. We have two numbers and we have everything there. So in the US, people consider that Pol Roger is a boutique winery. When the must arrive in the winery, it stays in the winery. All the process of production is in the winery at the same place. So no more pumping, no transportation, extra transportation, etc. So that's something also quite unique in Champagne. Vintage. So something interesting today, yesterday and today, is that it's the vintage 2002. So as I said, considered as one of the best of the decade. And it's quite unique, and I have to say thank you to Verbunt and to Peter Van Utter to have given the chance of people to buy this kind of bottle. Today, if you come at Pol Roger, we do not sell anymore this wine. Why? It's because it was very limited quantity, and the demand was extremely high for this wine. You know, the Blanc de Blanc 2002 was sold out in the UK in few days against the oxidation, and that's makes sense for us also because the vintage 1914 for the little history was made by the women because the men were at war. It was the beginning of World War I. And this wine was drunk under the so vinification, aging under the sound of the cannon, because you had the fight in the Marne with very close to Epernay. But also we opened this wine on peacetime in 1918, so 4 to 5 years after. So. For the launch of the Sir Winston Churchill cuvée, this was the launch of the very first Sir Winston Churchill cuvée. That's the Queen on the number 44 of the Avenue Champagne, a house belonging to the family Pol Roger. She was in a visit to us. We were very, you know, the link in between the United Kingdom and Pol Roger is very strong. The very first bottle under the name Pol Roger was sold in the UK. And on every single bottle you have this stamp, which is the royal warrant. This is the appointment of Queen Elizabeth II. So we have we are authorized to sell to Buckingham Palace. This bottle was the bottle served, not this one, but this wine. This wine was served at the royal wedding between Prince William and Catherine Middleton by Magnum, not the normal bottle, but by Magnum. Yeah. The last champagne in our glass is the cuvée Sir Winston Churchill. So you have Churchill with Odette Pol Roger. This ladies is Odette Pol Roger. That's the bottle and the box.
I also open it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I see the bottle? And so the history in between this story, or the story in between Sir Winston Churchill and the family Pol Roger started before World War II. Pol Roger was the preferred champagne of Sir Winston Churchill. He said that several times, write it several times, explaining that Pol Roger was the most drinkable address in the world. And he was known, and you see the invoice, he was known to drink quite a lot of Pol Roger among different cognac, etc. But for the champagne, Pol Roger was his preferred. And then with the rest of the family. Today, Christian Pol Roger, he was the former export director. He's a member of the 4th generation. He represents the family Pol Roger with the family Churchill, and he is the godfather of the grandson of Sir Winston Churchill. So the connection in between the family Pol Roger and the family Churchill is very close, very strong. And for the launch of the Sir Winston Churchill 2002, Randolph Churchill, so the grandson of Sir Winston Churchill, came to Épernay to talk about the connection in between the two families and the passion for Pol Roger champagne. So the 6th of June '84, with the vintage 75, we launched a special cuvée called Sir Winston Churchill. 75 because it was the 10th anniversary of his death, and 6th of June '84 because it was the 40th anniversary of the D-Day. But the idea for this cuvée was to reproduce a style of the great vintage that Sir Winston Churchill liked. So that's why it's dominantly Pinot Noir. That's why it's only Grand Cru, but Grand Cru that we found, that you could find, or we could find in the top vintage, the old top vintage, and of course a long aging. But the idea for this cuvée was to reproduce a style of the great vintage that Sir Winston Churchill liked. The design is black with black and red with silver. Now with the vintage 96, we turn for a packaging which is dark red, dark blue and gold, because the uniform of Lord of Admiralty was this color, or is this color. Based on the independence of a family, the search of independence on every situation. Also, the state of mind for the excellency of our wine, excellency of the relationship we have with our friends all around the world, and with the faithful relationship we have with people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.